Welcome back, Guardians. In the last report, we discussed the factions of the city, their political intrigues, and some of their obvious motivations. To get the best understanding possible of the city makeup, we must explore the species of the city, starting with the first characters of the Sol system, humanity. The story of humanity is better told through heroes and individuals of our past and our present, as these stories intrinsically represent the human spirit. Humanity is not without its share of disappointments and dark chapters. Ever since the Homo sapiens species first appeared roughly 200,000 years ago, we have always been at war with each other, our environment, or our base emotions. But humanity has never been defined as ruthless or animal. We've always believed we are something more, something better. We believed we were chosen. Perhaps the arrival of the traveler in the Sol system speaks to that prophecy, to that greater ideal that humanity seems to hold so dear. Or perhaps it is something else altogether. To get a better picture of humanity, we will explain the story of Jacob Hardy, pilot of the Ares 1. The Ares 1 was the first mission to investigate the artifact on Mars. To investigate the artifact, which at the time was unknown to humanity, was the traveler. The following portion of this report comes from the interviews and diary entries of Jacob Hardy, retelling the story about the Ares 1 mission to Mars and his first experience with the traveler. Diary entry number 1. Jacob Hardy prior to the Ares 1 launch. The mission is a go, crew of 3. Myolova, Chow, myself. Immediate departure at the next Hohmann window to Mars. The MREs and return ships will chase us out. How do I feel? I said at the press conference I felt privileged. Historians will read this diary, but it won't take their insight to tell the world that I'm terrified. It's the human reaction. What I wish I could convey is the exhilaration. That's the biggest thing. I'm not a spiritual man, but I've always believed there is something transcendent about spaceflight, something pure. We go out there because we can, because it's who we are. Now we go because we have to, because the unknown came to us. In 14 months, we'll face to face with it. And by the time we arrive, it should be active again, just like it was active on Jupiter and Mercury and Venus. I wonder what happens if it doesn't stop at Mars. I wonder if it'll leave us there in the sand and come to Earth and do here what it's done everywhere else. I hate that we're carrying weapons. I understand the necessity, but I hold to my belief. There's something beautiful out there, and it's up to us to reach it. His words are almost poetic, hopeful even, that humanity had the ability for the first time to reach out to something beyond the scope of our imagination. Something better, something more, something that could potentially define us. Diary entry number 2, after the Ares 1 mission landing. Everyone asks about the words. The truth is, I'm not much of a poet. Ares 1 didn't leave us the bandwidth for anything except blunt competence. We came in perilously hot, trying to select a landing site through the chaos of thickening atmosphere and turbulence that bloomed the target. A 20-minute round-trip light-speed delay to Earth meant we could only count on ourselves. When the number 3 engine went diagnostic during the second course correction, I thought we might go catastrophic. But Chow brought us in. Myolova brought us in. I just flew the ship. The Ares 1 excursion vehicle was built for thin winds and icy dust. We came in to a storm, the breath of God, a ripple of change rolling down off the artifact. We boarded on 3 sites, and finally I took us into powered hover and brought us down on reflexes and instinct. Then we ran checklists, suited up, and left the vehicle. There was a script, it's true, and I botched it. I got my boots down and made the most famous gaffe in human history. Said the first thing that came to mind, a warning to the others. We're walking into a rising wind. I didn't mean to say anything immortal. I just thought it'd be useful to know. If only Hardy knew that his first words on the surface of Mars would carry weight to this day, his response would have been much different. It can be argued we are continuing to walk into a rising wind. Diary entry number 3. The hike from the Ares 1. You watched it. Everything was recorded. I think you can get in full immersion now and fly around like a hummingbird. I'll add what I can. The route was planned. We all went together. The CEV in Ares 1 had itself enough automation to go home alone in the event of crew loss. Whatever we'd find with the artifact, it needed the human element. We carried our rifles. They made us heavier and slower and probably less safe. I think the argument about rifles can be left for another time. What is important is it turned out well. Look at me. Look at us. You're talking to a 90-year-old man. A 90-year-old man who's never been sharper. I'm miles ahead of every cognitive benchmark. What happened to me is good. What happened to all of us is good. When we crested that rise and made visual contact with the artifact, I don't think any one of us dared dream that it would end this well. We went to Mars at the cutting edge of human civilization, and it wasn't our weapons that won the day. It was our ship, our training, our camaraderie, our belief that if we just reached out to the universe, not to grasp it for profit or security, but with an open hand, we would be elevated. We were right. That makes me so happy to this day. According to Hardy, the impact of the Traveler was immediate. Changes made almost overnight. A world and a people transformed for the better. Hardy finally understood what transcendence was, and perhaps with time, we can recapture his mythos and make it our own. This is the final entry of Commander Jacob Hardy. 3 human beings stood on a high ridge and saw the shape of the future, saw rain strike a millennia-old desert, felt the air sweeten with oxygen and warm water and the beginnings of life. I am sometimes asked if I felt something die, the end of an era of human self-sufficiency. I don't know how to answer that. I don't know that I was changed. Nobody could experience that kind of wonder and remain unchanged. The decades since have proven that to me. I knew I'd never fly a mission like that again. I recognized the need for a new love. That's why I threw my fresh cognitive skills into understanding the Traveler. How can one entity so quickly and utterly remake an entire world? 50 years later, I'm conversant in high mathematics, particularly topological thoughts and the slippery irreality of light. I'm involved in a project to study the Traveler's terraforming actions right now. But I still enjoy the interviews. I like going back to that mission. It makes me unspeakably happy to see how well it all turned out, and it makes me happy to remember I was there. The story of Jacob Hardy in a way symbolizes the struggle of humanity with its base emotions. He questioned the need for weapons, spoke of the hope and ability of a man to reach out to the stars with but an open hand. He was afraid, but he conquered his fear, moved past it with an inexorable courage because he had to, because he chose to, because the alternative was not worthy of humanity. Jacob and the crew of the Ares 1 were human, mortal, scared beings of but dust and belief. But they pushed past their insecurities and proposed something greater for humanity. That whatever is out there for us, we can choose how we face it. We chose to accept the Traveler, and we built a golden age. We can choose to accept defeat and let the darkness wash over us like it has so much of our proud history. Or we can unite in the camaraderie like the crew of the Ares 1 and challenge the status quo. Because Guardians make their own fate.